The transport ship docked at Nexus Prime with a gentle hum that barely registered through the massive station's hull. Taman pressed his face against the small window, watching alien vessels drift past like metal fish in an ocean of stars. His stomach twisted with nerves as he adjusted his simple Earth uniform one more time. "First time seeing the Academy?" asked Bora from the seat beside him. She looked calm, but Taman noticed her fingers drumming against her knee. "Yeah, you?" "Same." Bora smiled, the expression lighting up her whole face. "My mom always said I'd end up somewhere crazy. She just never guessed it would be this crazy." Across the aisle, Wu Jin was reading a medical textbook, his lips moving silently as he memorized alien anatomy charts. The book looked thick enough to stop a bullet, which made sense since it covered 17 different species. Jin sat behind him, practicing pronunciation of various alien languages under her breath. Her diplomatic scores had been perfect back on Earth, but Earth diplomacy seemed simple compared to managing relations between dozens of alien races. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Attention passengers. We have docked at Nexus Prime. Earth cadets, please gather your belongings and prepare for transfer to Academy Command." Taman grabbed his single duffel bag. Everything he owned fit inside it, which seemed pathetic compared to the hovering cargo pods other alien cadets had brought. But then again, most of his tools were improvised anyway. He had learned long ago that the best engineers could build anything from nothing. The airlock hissed open, revealing a corridor that stretched impossibly far in both directions. The walls pulsed with soft blue light, and the air smelled like ozone and something sweet that Taman couldn't identify. Alien cadets walked past in groups, their conversations creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and harmonics that human ears weren't designed to hear. A tall figure approached them, moving with the fluid grace of a predator. Commander Vextal stood nearly 3 meters high, his reptilian features sharp and intelligent. Golden eyes studied the 4 humans with what might have been curiosity or disappointment. "Earth cadets," he said in perfect, if heavily accented English. "I am Commander Vextal. Welcome to the Galactic Military Academy." The 4 humans snapped to attention. Taman had practiced the movement thousands of times in basic training, but it felt different under alien eyes. "Follow me," Commander Vextal continued. "We will begin with orientation and medical examinations." They walked through corridors filled with cadets from across the galaxy. Taman tried not to stare at the crystal beings whose bodies refracted light into rainbow patterns, or the floating gas cloud entities that communicated through color changes. A group of insect-like creatures clicked their mandibles in what sounded like laughter as the humans passed. "Look at them," one whispered to another in broken galactic common. "So small, so soft. How did they survive long enough to reach space?" Bora's jaw tightened, but she kept walking. Wu Jin pretended not to hear, focusing on his medical texts. Jin smiled politely at every alien they passed, treating the insults like diplomatic challenges to overcome. They entered a vast chamber filled with floating platforms and holographic displays. Hundreds of cadets moved between training stations, practicing everything from zero-gravity combat to quantum engineering. The technology was beautiful and advanced beyond anything Earth had produced. "Your species," Commander Vextal said, stopping at an observation deck, "presents unique challenges." "Sir?" Taman asked. "Earth is classified as a Class II death world." The review board debated for months whether beings from such an environment could safely integrate into civilized galactic society. Wu Jin looked up from his book. "Deathworld? A planet where the environment actively attempts to kill its inhabitants," Commander Vextal explained. "Extreme weather, dangerous predators, toxic plant life, seismic instability. Most civilized worlds eliminated such hazards millions of years ago. We call it Tuesday," Bora muttered under her breath. Commander Vextal's head tilted. "Excuse me?" "Nothing, sir. She was just commenting on the weather," Jin said smoothly. "Yes. Well," Commander Vextal gestured toward a smaller training area separated from the main floor. "Due to your unique physiology and background, you will begin with remedial courses. We have modified the standard curriculum to account for your species' limitations." Taman felt his cheeks burn. "Limitations? Your technology is primitive. Your educational systems focus on survival rather than advanced theory. Your bodies are fragile compared to most galactic species." Commander Vextal's tone wasn't cruel, just matter of fact. We will bring you up to galactic standards gradually. The remedial area looked like a children's playground compared to the main training floor. The equipment was older, simpler, and clearly designed for beings considered too weak or stupid for regular classes. A few other cadets were already there, looking miserable and out of place. Dr. Ketra will conduct your medical examinations, Commander Vextal said, indicating a crystalline being whose body sparkled with internal light. She specializes in exotic biology. Dr. Ketra approached with movements that sounded like wind chimes. Her voice resonated with harmonics that made human teeth ache. Fascinating specimens. I have read the preliminary reports on human physiology. Quite primitive but remarkably resilient for such a hostile environment. Taemin exchanged glances with his teammates. Being called a specimen didn't feel great, but they needed to make this work. Earth had fought too hard to earn a place in the galactic community to give up now. The medical examination was thorough and humiliating. Dr. Ketra expressed amazement at human bone density, muscle distribution, and cardiovascular systems. She seemed particularly fascinated by their stress responses and healing capabilities. Your fight-or-flight system is remarkably overdeveloped, she noted, making records on a floating tablet. And these scars? Training accidents, Wu Jin explained when she examined a burn mark on his arm. Combat practice, Bo-Ra added, showing knife scars on her hands. Workshop mishaps, Taemin said of the various cuts and burns covering his arms. Dr. Ketra made more notes. Such constant injury and repair. Your homeworld must be incredibly dangerous. We manage, Hyejin said diplomatically. Their first classes were basic theory courses that most galactic cadets completed in childhood. Quantum mechanics, stellar navigation, universal linguistics. The human cadets sat at tiny desks designed for beings half their size, while the instructor explained concepts they had mastered years ago. Cadet Mordun, a silicon-based being from the Confederation, seemed particularly amused by their presence. His crystalline form shifted, colors as he whispered to his friends about the primitive Deathworlders who needed special treatment. I heard they still use chemical explosives for mining, he said loud enough for the humans to hear. And their computers are so slow they measure processing speed in gigahertz instead of quantum states. Their medicine is based on cutting people open and removing parts, another cadet added, Wu Jin's hands clenched into fists, but he kept studying his notes. The truth was, human technology did seem primitive compared to galactic standards, but there were reasons for that. Reasons these pampered aliens wouldn't understand. The first week passed slowly. The humans excelled at their remedial coursework, but that only seemed to confirm everyone's expectations. Of course, they were good at simple tasks. Their whole species was built for simplicity. Then came the first practical exercise. It was supposed to be a basic emergency drill. A training module would simulate a minor system failure, and cadets would practice standard evacuation procedures. Simple, safe, routine. The module was a mock spaceship bridge filled with 20 cadets from various species. Lights dimmed to simulate emergency power, and recorded announcements played standard evacuation orders. Most cadets began moving toward designated exit points in orderly lines. Then something went wrong. The training module's water recycling system ruptured, sending torrents of liquid flooding across the floor. Emergency power failed completely, plunging the chamber into darkness. The exit sealed shut as safety protocols engaged, trapping everyone inside. Alien cadets began to panic. These were beings from stable, safe worlds where genuine emergencies were rare. Their training focused on academic knowledge, not real-world crisis management. In the darkness, Taemin's voice cut through the chaos. Bo-Ra, crowd control. Wu Jin, check for injuries. Hyejin, establish communication with the outside. Without hesitation, the 4 humans sprang into action. While other cadets stood frozen or cried for help, the Deathworlders moved with terrifying efficiency. Taemin found the manual override for the emergency systems using nothing but his hands and knowledge of basic engineering principles. Bo-Ra organized the panicking aliens into groups, her command presence absolute in the crisis. Wu Jin treated several cadets for shock and minor injuries using improvised medical supplies. Hyejin managed to rig a communication system from broken equipment. Within minutes, the crisis was over. The exits opened, the lights returned, and rescue teams arrived to find everything under control. Commander Vextal stared at the four humans as they filed out with the other cadets. The Deathworlders looked calm, alert, and ready for whatever came next. For the first time since their word of the training module incident spread quickly through Nexus Prime. By the next morning, every cadet in the academy had heard about the four humans who handled a real emergency, while their alien classmates panicked. The story grew with each telling, but the core facts remained the same. When things went wrong, the Deathworlders didn't freeze. Commander Vextal watched the humans more carefully during their second week. Something about their behavior during the crisis nagged at him. Most cadets would have been shaken by such an experience, but these four seemed energized by it. They moved through their classes with increased confidence, no longer bothered by the whispers and stares of other students. "Today we will conduct combat simulations," announced Instructor Felthan, a veteran warrior from the Hegemony forces. Her forearms moved independently as she activated the training systems. "Standard protocols apply. Use designated energy weapons only. Engage safety shields before beginning. Follow all combat regulations." The other cadets nodded eagerly. Combat training was considered the most advanced course in the academy. Most species had eliminated warfare centuries ago, making military science purely theoretital for them. Taemin raised his hand. "Instructor, what if the designated weapons malfunction?" "They will not malfunction," Felthan replied with certainty. "Galactic weapon systems are tested to 17 different safety standards. But what if they do?" "They will not." Bora exchanged glances with her teammates. On Earth, backup plans had backup plans. Equipment always failed at the worst possible moment. Murphy's Law was practically a religion among human military forces. The first simulation pit Cadet Morden against Taemin. The arena was a holographic cityscape with buildings that provided cover and obstacles. Both cadets were equipped with standard plasma rifles and energy shields. Morden took position behind a barrier, activated his shield, and began laying down precise covering fire according to Academy doctrine. His shots were accurate and measured following textbook tactical guidelines. Taemin disappeared. For 30 seconds, Morden fired at empty air while scanning for his opponent. The human had melted into the urban terrain like smoke, using shadows and blind spots that the alien cadet didn't even know existed. When Taemin finally struck, it was from 3 directions at once. He had jury-rigged his single plasma rifle to create multiple firing positions using mirrors and delayed triggers. While Morden was still processing this impossible tactic, training bolts tagged him from behind. "Victory to Cadet Taemin," the computer announced. Instructor Felthan stared at the readout. "How did you modify your weapon?" "That should be impossible with standard equipment. Wire from my uniform buttons, reflective surface from my belt buckle, and a simple timing mechanism using the rifle's own charging system," Taemin explained. "Basic field improvisation. That is not standard doctrine." "No, ma'am." But it worked. Bora's turn came next, facing a cadet from the Crystalline Collective. The arena was a space station environment with multiple levels and zero-gravity sections. Standard tactics called for methodical room clearing and controlled advancement. Bora ignored standard tactics entirely. She used the zero-gravity sections to launch herself at impossible angles, ricocheting off walls and ceilings like a human missile. Her movements were chaotic, unpredictable, and completely outside normal tactical thinking. Her opponent, trained in precise, logical combat patterns, couldn't adapt quickly enough to track her. Bora's victory came when she literally bounced off the ceiling to attack from above, an angle that the arena's designers hadn't considered possible. "Your approach lacks discipline," Instructor Felthan observed. "Yes, ma'am, but discipline can become predictability, and predictability gets you killed." Wu Jin's simulation was different. Instead of pure combat, he faced a medical emergency scenario. Multiple casualties in a disaster zone with limited supplies and hostile conditions. Most medical cadets would have set up a proper triage center, called for additional supplies, and followed standard emergency protocols. The simulation was designed to test knowledge of proper procedures under stress. Wu Jin took one look at the situation and started cutting. He performed emergency surgery with improvised tools, used non-medical supplies for bandages and splints, and stabilized critical patients using techniques that made alien medical students queasy. His methods looked barbaric compared to advanced galactic medicine, but his patient survival rate was nearly perfect. This is not proper medical procedure, Dr. Ketra protested as she reviewed the simulation. Ma'am, with respect, proper procedure would have let 3 of those patients die while I waited for the right equipment. But the safety protocols don't matter if the patient bleeds out. Dr. Ketra made more notes on her tablet. Human medicine was clearly primitive, but the results were hard to argue with. Yejin's test came during a diplomatic simulation. She was placed in a scenario where multiple alien species were on the verge of conflict over resource rights. Standard diplomatic protocol called for careful mediation following established galactic law. But galactic law assumed all species were reasonable, civilized, and willing to compromise. The simulation species were not. Yejin threw diplomatic protocol out the window. She used psychological techniques learned from dealing with human conflicts, appealing to pride, fear, greed, and honor in ways that pure logic could not address. She made deals that violated several treaty guidelines but prevented a war. Your methods are highly unconventional, Commander Vextal observed after reviewing her results. Sir, humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We learned that sometimes you need to think like your enemy to understand them. And sometimes you need to scare them more than they scare you. Bora added helpfully. The Academy's teaching staff began holding emergency meetings. The human cadets were excelling at every practical exercise, but their methods violated nearly every standard procedure. They improvised constantly, ignored safety protocols, and approached problems from angles that seemed illogical. More importantly, they were influencing the other cadets. Some alien students had started asking questions about human techniques. A few had even requested transfer to classes with the Deathworlders. They are disrupting the established order, complained Instructor Felthan during one faculty meeting. Their results speak for themselves, Dr. Ketra argued. Perhaps our methods need examination. Their homeworld made them paranoid and violent, another instructor added. They see enemies everywhere. Or, Commander Vextal said slowly, their homeworld taught them that preparation and adaptability are the keys to survival. The next set of exercises moved to survival training. The Academy's survival course was designed to challenge even the hardiest galactic species. Cadets were dropped on a barren moon with minimal supplies and expected to survive for 1 week using Academy-approved techniques. Most alien cadets struggled with the course. They had grown up on comfortable, civilized worlds where food came from replicators and shelter was always available. Even the hardy species found the survival exercises challenging. For the humans, it was a vacation. Taman built a shelter that was warmer and more comfortable than the standard emergency habitat. Bora established a perimeter defense system that could detect approaching threats long before they became dangerous. Wu Jin found 17 different food sources that other species considered inedible, including several that were actually quite tasty when prepared correctly. Hyejin made friends with the local wildlife. How are they doing this? Demanded Cadet Morden as he watched the humans through surveillance equipment. His own shelter had collapsed twice, and he was surviving on emergency rations while the Deathworlders seemed to be having some kind of camping celebration. They are from Earth, replied his partner, a gas cloud entity named Vorth. Perhaps survival is natural for them. Natural? They're using rocks and sticks to build better equipment than our advanced technology provides. This was true. Taman had constructed a water purification system using sand, charcoal, and cloth that outperformed the Academy's emergency filters. Bora had made hunting tools from scrap metal that were more effective than standard energy weapons for taking small game. Wu Jin had identified and cataloged 43 different plants with medicinal properties, and Hyejin had somehow convinced a pack of local predators to hunt for the group in exchange for scratches behind their ears and protection from larger threats. This is impossible, Mordun insisted. No species should be this adapted to hostile environments, but the evidence was hard to ignore. While other cadets struggled with basic survival, the humans thrived. They seemed to assume that everything was trying to kill them and planned accordingly. When it turned out that most things actually were trying to kill them, they were already prepared. The survival exercise ended with all 4 humans in perfect health, having gained weight during their week in the wilderness. Several alien cadets required medical attention for malnutrition, exposure, and stress-related illnesses. Your performance was adequate, Commander Vextal told them during the debriefing. Thank you, sir, Hyjin replied politely. However, your methods continued to deviate from standard procedures. Yes, sir. You show little respect for established safety protocols. Sir, our protocols are different because our world is different, Bora said carefully. We're not true. The alarm started as a low whine that made everyone's teeth ache. Then it became a shriek that sent most cadets running for their quarters in panic. Emergency lights bathed Nexus Prime in pulsing red shadows, while automated voices announced the unthinkable. Reactor containment breach detected. All personnel evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. Taemin was in the engineering lab when the alarms began. Around him, alien students froze with terror. Some began crying. Others fell into catatonic states that their species used to deal with overwhelming stress. The backup systems will handle it, whispered a cadet from the Silicon Confederation, his crystalline form flickering with fear colors. The safety protocols will save us, added another, though her voice shook with doubt. Taemin was already moving. He grabbed emergency tools from the lab storage and headed for the door. If the reactor was really breaching, backup systems and safety protocols would be the first things to fail. That was how catastrophes worked. Bora found him in the corridor. She had armed herself with whatever weapons she could find and was moving with the focused calm of someone going into battle. How bad? She asked. Bad enough that the automated systems are screaming, Taemin replied. Where are the others? Wu Jin is setting up medical stations. Heejin is trying to coordinate evacuation efforts. They ran through corridors filled with panicking aliens. Most galactic species had evolved on stable worlds where true emergencies were rare. Their civilizations had eliminated most genuine dangers through technology and careful planning. Faced with a real crisis, they simply didn't know how to react. The humans did. Commander Vextal was in the command center, desperately trying to restore control as system after system failed. The reactor's magnetic containment was fluctuating. Backup power was offline. Emergency evacuation pods were malfunctioning. Everything that could go wrong was going wrong at once. Sir? Taemin said, appearing at his shoulder. What do you need? I need the impossible, Commander Vextal snapped. The reactor core is destabilizing. If we cannot restore containment in the next 20 minutes, the resulting explosion will destroy half the station. What have you tried? Everything. Remote repair systems are offline. Automated diagnostics are corrupted. We cannot even access the reactor chamber due to radiation levels. Taemin studied the readouts. The situation was worse than Commander Vextal realized. The reactor wasn't just failing randomly. The pattern suggested cascade failure, where each broken system caused others to break in turn. It was like watching dominoes fall, except each domino was a critical life support system. I can fix it, he said simply. Impossible. The radiation levels would kill any organic being in seconds, maybe, but standing here definitely won't fix anything. Bora appeared with an armload of equipment she had, improvised from around the station. Medical says we have maybe 15 minutes before the radiation reaches levels that will kill everyone in this section. Wu Jin? Taemin asked. Setting up triage centers and treating radiation poisoning with whatever supplies he can find. Most of the medical equipment requires power systems that are offline. Heejin joined them, looking grim. Evacuation is a disaster. Most species are too panicked to follow evacuation procedures. The ones that aren't panicked are so focused on following proper protocols that they're moving too slowly. Commander Vextal stared at them. You four cannot possibly handle this crisis. Sir, with respect, your people aren't handling it either, Bora said, and we're the only ones who seem to be thinking clearly right now. This was true. Around the command center, alien officers and technicians were either frozen with terror or frantically following procedures that clearly weren't working. None of them seemed able to adapt when their normal methods failed. What do you need from us? Commander Vextal asked. Stay out of our way, Taemin said. And trust us. He grabbed Bora and headed for the reactor chamber. Behind them, they could hear Heejin organizing the command center staff like a general preparing for battle. The reactor level was a nightmare of flashing warning lights, radiation alarms, and superheated air. The containment chamber glowed with an angry light that made their eyes water even through protective gear. This is insane, Bora said as they approached the manual override systems. Yeah, Taemin agreed cheerfully. Just like home. They worked with the desperate efficiency of people who expected death around every corner. Taemin bypassed corrupted computer systems using manual controls that most galactic engineers hadn't touched in decades. Bora provided security, watching for signs of structural failure or radiation spikes that would kill them before they could complete repairs. Above them, Wu Jin was performing miracles of battlefield medicine. The Academy's medical bay was designed for routine injuries and standard alien physiology. It was not equipped to handle radiation poisoning across 17 different species simultaneously. So Wu Jin improvised. He used kitchen equipment to create makeshift decontamination chambers. He mixed cleaning supplies to create radiation flush compounds. He repurposed engineering tools as medical instruments. Most shocking of all, he seemed to know exactly what he was doing. How is this possible? Dr. Kitra asked as she watched him work. Ma'am, human medicine developed in field conditions, Wu Jin explained while treating a crystalline cadet whose internal structure was clouding from radiation damage. We assume we won't have the right equipment, the right supplies, or the right conditions, so we learn to work with what we have. But the risk of infection, of secondary complications, is lower than the risk of doing nothing. Dr. Ketra watched him save lives using techniques that violated every medical safety standard she knew. The terrible thing was it was working. Yijin had turned the command center into something resembling organized chaos. She had alien staff working together despite species prejudices that went back millennia. She coordinated evacuation efforts across language barriers and cultural differences that usually made cooperation impossible. How are you doing this? Demanded a diplomatic officer from the hegemony. These species cannot work together. They have been enemies for generations, sir. When everyone is about to die, old arguments seem less important. Heejin replied while directing traffic through damaged corridors. She was using psychological techniques learned from managing human conflicts. Appeal to shared survival instincts. Create common goals that override individual differences. Make cooperation feel like the natural choice rather than a forced compromise. It shouldn't have worked with alien psychology, but somehow it did. Back in the reactor chamber, Taemin was elbow deep in machinery that hadn't been manually serviced in 50 years. The containment field was stabilizing, but slowly. Too slowly. We need to reroute power from secondary systems, he told Bora. Which secondary systems? All of them. That will leave most of the station without life support. For about 10 minutes. If this doesn't work, life support won't matter anyway. Bora nodded and started shutting down systems across the station. In the darkness that followed, emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red shadows. The reactor's angry glow began to fade. Containment fields strengthened. Radiation levels dropped. System after system came back online as power was restored from the stabilizing reactor. In the command center, Commander Vextal watched impossible readings appear on his screens. It's working. Around the station, alien cadets and staff began to realize they were going to survive. The panic faded, replaced by exhaustion and disbelief. How? Commander Vextal asked when the 4 humans returned to the command center. Teamwork, Yejin said diplomatically. Stubbornness, Bora added. Paranoia, Taemin said cheerfully. Always assume everything will break at the worst possible moment. Experience, Wu Jin concluded. We're from Earth. Things go wrong there all the time. Commander Vextal looked around his command center. His staff was slowly returning to their stations, but they moved differently now. They looked at the 4 humans with something approaching awe. Your species, he said slowly, is not what we expected. No, sir. We get that a lot. Dr. Ketra appeared carrying her tablet full of medical data from the crisis. Commander, I need to speak with you privately. They moved to a quiet corner while the humans helped restore normal operations. What did you discover? Commander Vextal asked. They are not like us, Dr. Ketra said simply. Their stress responses are completely different. When faced with mortal danger, their bodies become more efficient, not less. Their thinking becomes clearer, not clouded. That seems impossible. Their homeworld shaped them for constant crisis. We have eliminated crisis from our civilizations and called it progress. But perhaps we eliminated something important along with the danger. Commander Vextal watched Taemin explaining repair procedures to a group of engineering students who hung on his every word. The human made it look simple, but Commander Vextal knew that what he had accomplished was miraculous. What are you suggesting? That maybe we have been thinking about this backwards, Dr. Ketra said. We assumed their world made them weak and primitive. But what if it made them something we have never seen before? Which is? A species that becomes more capable as conditions become more impossible. The message reached Earth 3 days after the Nexus Prime incident. Within a week, every major news network in the galaxy was running the same story. 4 human cadets had saved one of the most advanced space stations ever built using nothing but primitive Deathworld training and improvised equipment. Taman found himself signing autographs for alien cadets who had previously ignored him. Engineering departments from 12 different species sent recruitment offers. The Silicon Confederation wanted to study his improvisation techniques. The Crystalline Collective offered him advanced degrees in subjects he had never heard of. This is weird, he told Bora as they walked through corridors, where every alien they passed stopped to stare. You think this is weird? I got 3 marriage proposals yesterday, Bora replied. Apparently, the ability to stay calm during combat is considered attractive in several species. Only 3? I got 7, Wu Jin said, looking up from a medical journal written in a language that used colors instead of words. Dr. Ketra says my primitive healing techniques are being studied at medical schools across the galaxy. He Jin smiled as they entered the dining hall. The Diplomatic Corps wants to hire me as a consultant on crisis psychology and interspecies cooperation under extreme stress. The dining hall fell silent as they entered. Hundreds of alien eyes tracked their movement to an empty table. Conversations resumed in whispers as other cadets debated whether to approach the famous Deathworlders. I miss being ignored, Taman muttered. Commander Vextal appeared at their table with a tablet full of official documents. I have received communication from the Galactic Council. Are we in trouble? Bora asked. The opposite. You are being recommended for immediate advancement to officer candidate programs. Several military branches are offering direct commissions. That's great news, Hijin said diplomatically. There is more. The Council wants to establish exchange programs with Earth. They are requesting additional human cadets for advanced training programs throughout the galaxy. Wu Jin frowned. How many additional cadets? All of them, Commander Vextal said simply. Every human colony, every military academy on Earth, every training program your species operates. The galaxy wants to learn from humanity. The 4 humans exchanged glances. This was bigger than they had expected. Sir? Taman said carefully. What exactly do they want to learn? How to survive when everything goes wrong. Across the galaxy, the lesson was being learned in different ways. On hegemony worlds, military commanders studied recordings of the humans' actions during the reactor crisis. Their improvisation techniques violated every standard procedure, but the results were undeniable. They treated the situation like a puzzle to be solved, not a protocol to be followed, observed General Korthax during a staff meeting. When their equipment failed, they made new equipment. When their procedures didn't apply, they created new procedures. It suggests a completely different approach to military thinking, his aide replied. Instead of following predetermined plans, they adapt in real time. More than adapt. They seem to expect their plans to fail and prepare accordingly. This was the key insight that was spreading through galactic military circles. Human tactics assumed failure, expected betrayal, and planned for disaster. When those things happened, humans were already 3 steps ahead. Medical schools were having similar revelations. Dr. Ketra's reports on human battlefield medicine had sparked debate across the Galactic Medical Collective. Their techniques appear barbaric, noted Dr. Velteran during a medical conference. They cut into patients with sharp instruments. They use toxic chemicals to kill infections. They deliberately break bones to set them properly. And yet their patient survival rates under crisis conditions exceed our own by 30%, his colleague added. How is this possible? Because they assume they will not have proper equipment, sterile conditions, or adequate time. So they train to save lives under the worst possible circumstances. The philosophical implications were staggering. Galactic medicine had focused on perfection. Sterile environments, advanced equipment, comprehensive diagnostics. Human medicine focused on results. Save the patient no matter what it takes. Both approaches worked, but in different situations. The Diplomatic Corps was struggling with similar revelations. Hyojin's crisis management techniques had been analyzed by every major embassy in the galaxy. She ignored established negotiation protocols, reported Ambassador Zenthak. She appealed to emotion rather than logic. She made promises that violated several treaties. But she prevented a panic that would have killed thousands, his aide pointed out. Yes. The question is whether her methods can be applied to formal diplomatic situations. Early experiments suggested they could. Human psychology techniques worked surprisingly well with many alien species, particularly in crisis situations where logic alone was insufficient. But not everyone was pleased with humanity's sudden rise in galactic estimation. In the Outer Rim territories, a growing movement led by the Purist Alliance viewed human influence as a threat to galactic civilization. They believed that primitive Deathworld thinking would corrupt the advanced peaceful societies that had taken millions of years to develop. These humans are dangerous, declared Speaker Forthen during a clandestine meeting of Purist leaders. They think like predators. They prepare for war even in peacetime. They will drag us back into the barbaric past our ancestors worked so hard to leave behind. What do you propose? Asked another member. That we demonstrate the true cost of their primitive ways before it spreads further. Back at Nexus Prime, the 4 human cadets were discovering that fame had its own problems. They couldn't go anywhere without being followed by alien cadets wanting advice, instruction, or just stories about Earth. Tell us about the Death Storm, pleaded a young cadet from the Gas Giant Collective. They're just hurricanes, Bo-Ra explained for the 100th time. Big storms with lots of wind and rain, but they can destroy entire cities, only if you don't prepare for them. How do you prepare for something that can level buildings? You build stronger buildings. You have evacuation plans. You keep emergency supplies ready. The alien cadets took notes as if she were revealing the secrets of the universe. To them, the idea of preparing for disasters that might never come seemed like paranoid madness. To humans, it seemed like common sense. Taman was teaching improvised engineering to packed classrooms. His techniques for building tools from scrap materials were being recorded and distributed throughout Galactic engineering programs. The key is understanding that any tool is just applied physics, he explained to a group of fascinated students. If you understand what you're trying to accomplish, you can usually find a way to accomplish it with whatever materials you have available. But what if the materials are insufficient? Asked a student. Then you change your approach, or you find different materials, or you redefine what you're trying to accomplish. That sounds inefficient. It is inefficient. But efficiency doesn't matter if the efficient method doesn't work. Wu Jin's medical classes had become legendary. He taught alien students to treat injuries using whatever supplies were available, to diagnose problems without advanced equipment, and to make life or death decisions in seconds rather than minutes. Human medicine assumes you will not have the right drugs, the right tools, or the right conditions, he explained. So we learn to work around those limitations. But surely proper medical facilities are preferable. Of course they are. But proper medical facilities are not always available. When they're not, you use what you have or people die. Hyojin's psychology and leadership classes were perhaps the most disturbing to galactic educators. She taught techniques for managing fear, maintaining morale under impossible conditions, and motivating people who had given up hope. The first rule of crisis leadership is that someone has to make decisions, she explained. It doesn't matter if you're the smartest person, the most qualified person, or the most experienced person. If no one else is making decisions, then you make decisions. But what if you make the wrong decision? Then you make a different decision. But doing nothing is always wrong. These lessons were spreading far beyond the academy. Throughout the galaxy, the Deathworld perspective was becoming a subject of serious academic study. Universities established new departments. Military schools created new courses. Medical colleges added crisis medicine to their curricula. But the Purist Alliance was not idle. They began with subtle sabotage. Equipment failures during human demonstrations. Accidental contamination of supplies used in human medical training. Communication disruptions during diplomatic simulations. When those failed to discredit the humans, they escalated. The attack came during a joint training exercise between human and alien cadets. It was supposed to be a simple spacewalk to practice zero-gravity construction techniques. Instead, the transport ship's navigation systems failed, sending the exercise pod drifting toward a dangerous asteroid field. Most of the alien cadets panicked immediately. This was exactly the kind of catastrophic system failure that their civilizations had spent millennia preventing. When it happened anyway, they had no idea how to respond. The humans, of course, got to work. Taemin began jury-rigging communications equipment to call for help. Bora organized the other cadets into work teams. Woojin prepared the exercise pod drifted helplessly through space as Purist Alliance ships closed in around it. Inside, 23 alien cadets from 12 different species huddled together in terror, while 4 humans calmly took inventory of their resources. Standard construction tools, basic life support, and a first aid kit, Taemin reported, plus whatever we can salvage from the pod's systems. 17 scared aliens with no combat training, Bora added. But they're trainable. Medical supplies for basic injuries, plus some interesting chemicals from the construction equipment, Woojin noted. And a perfect opportunity to teach the galaxy why you don't threaten humans, Heejin concluded. Speaker Vorthon's voice crackled over the communication system again. Surrender now and you will be returned safely to your homeworlds. Continue to resist and face the consequences. Resist what exactly? Bora asked the nearest alien cadet. They haven't actually asked us to do anything yet. I think they want us to be afraid, replied Cadet Mordun, his crystalline form flickering with stress colors. Well, that's not going to happen. The humans began working with the terrifying efficiency that had become their trademark. Taemin started disassembling construction equipment to build improvised weapons. Bora organized the alien cadets into teams based on their species' natural abilities. Woojin prepared medical stations for the injuries that were sure to come. Haijin established communication protocols and began psychological preparation for combat. What are you doing? Asked a cadet from the gas giant collective, watching Taemin weld metal fragments together. Making tools, Taemin replied cheerfully. Those look like weapons. Tools, weapons, same basic principle. Apply force to solve problems. The alien cadets watched in fascination as the humans transformed their helpless situation into something that resembled preparation for war. Instead of panicking or giving up, they seemed energized by the threat. Are you not afraid? Morden asked Bora. Of course we're afraid, she replied while teaching a group of cadets basic hand-to-hand combat. Fear keeps you alive. But being afraid doesn't mean being helpless. But we are helpless. We are surrounded by warships with superior weapons and defenses. No, we're not helpless. We're just at a disadvantage. There's a difference. Outside, the Purist Alliance ships began their attack with warning shots that sent vibrations through the pod's hull. They expected immediate surrender from a group of terrified students. Instead, they got return fire. Taemin had converted the construction laser into a surprisingly effective weapon system. It wasn't powerful enough to damage warship hulls, but it was accurate enough to target sensor arrays and communication equipment. Impossible, muttered the Purist commander, watching his sensors being systematically disabled. They have no weapons, sir. They appear to have improvised weapons from construction equipment. Improvised weapons cannot threaten military vessels. His confidence lasted until the first Purist ship lost navigation control and began drifting toward an asteroid. Somehow the humans had managed to hack into the ship's systems using the pod's basic communication array. How? The commander demanded. His technical officer stared at his instruments in disbelief. They're using construction signals to overload our navigation computers. It shouldn't be possible, but our security systems weren't designed to filter out industrial equipment. Inside the pod, Hyojin was coordinating what could generously be called a battle plan. The alien cadets had overcome their initial terror and were now working together with grim determination. Remember, we're not trying to destroy their ships, she explained. We're trying to disable them long enough to escape. How? Asked Morden. By being more creative than they are. This became the pattern for the next hour. Every time the Purist ships tried a conventional attack, the humans responded with something completely unconventional. When the attackers used electronic warfare, Bora had alien cadets create physical interference using their natural abilities. When they tried to jam communications, Woojin rigged a chemical signaling system using medical supplies. Most importantly, Heejin kept everyone focused on survival rather than surrender. She used every psychological technique learned from dealing with human conflicts to maintain morale and unity among species that had never worked together before. This is impossible, Speaker Vorthon announced during another communication attempt. You are students, not soldiers. You have no training for this situation. You're right, Heejin replied calmly. We don't have training for this specific situation. But we have training for situations where everything goes wrong, and we have to survive anyway. Your primitive world has made you violent and paranoid. Our primitive world has made us adaptable and hard to kill. There's a difference. The battle, if it could be called that, continued for 3 hours. The Purist Alliance had superior weapons, better ships, and overwhelming numerical advantage. They should have won easily. Instead, they found themselves increasingly frustrated by opponents who refused to follow any conventional tactical doctrine. The humans didn't try to win in any traditional sense. They just kept causing problems that were harder and harder to solve. When conventional weapons failed to penetrate the pod's defenses, they tried boarding actions. The boarders found themselves facing improvised traps, chemical weapons made from cleaning supplies, and alien cadets who fought with desperate courage under human leadership. When boarding failed, they tried siege tactics. The humans responded by turning the pod's life support systems into a closed-loop recycling system that could last for weeks while simultaneously broadcasting distress signals on frequencies the purists couldn't jam. When the siege failed, they tried negotiation. Heejin politely explained that they would be happy to discuss terms as soon as the purists stopped trying to kill them, but not before. The breakthrough came when Tai Min managed to hack into one of the purist ship's communication arrays. Suddenly, the entire galaxy could watch what was happening. The footage was remarkable. 27 young beings trapped in a construction pod, surrounded by military vessels refusing to surrender or despair. 4 humans leading by example while alien cadets discovered courage they didn't know they possessed. Most shocking of all, they were winning, not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through sheer stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Every time the purists created a new problem, the mixed group found a new solution. Citizens of the galaxy, Heejin announced over the hijacked communication channel, you are watching the Purist Alliance attempt to murder unarmed students because they disagree with our teaching methods. Speaker Vorthan's image appeared on screens across a dozen star systems. These Deathworld primitives threaten everything we have built. They must be stopped before they corrupt our civilization. We're teaching engineering, medicine, and crisis management, Bo-Ra replied, her voice carrying clearly through space. If you consider education threatening, maybe the problem isn't with our teaching. Around the galaxy, public opinion began to shift. What had started as a demonstration of human primitiveness was becoming a demonstration of human resilience. More importantly, it was showing that alien cadets could learn that resilience. Rescue ships began arriving from multiple directions. Hegemony vessels, Confederation scouts, even neutral merchant ships converged on the battle site. The Purist Alliance found themselves outnumbered and facing an increasingly hostile galactic community. This is not over, Speaker Vorthan announced as his ships prepared to retreat. No, it's not, Heejin agreed. But you've already lost. How? Because everyone in the galaxy just watched alien cadets work together to solve impossible problems. They've learned that cooperation is stronger than isolation, that adaptation is better than rigid thinking, and that courage can be taught. Primitive Deathworld. Nonsense, maybe, but primitive Deathworld nonsense just saved 27 lives while your advanced civilization tried to murder students. The rescue operation took 6 hours and involved ships from 8 different species working, together with unprecedented cooperation. The alien cadets who had started the day as terrified students ended it as heroes who had faced down military vessels and survived. Commander Vex Tal was among the first to board the damaged pod. He found alien cadets treating human injuries, humans teaching alien combat techniques, and everyone working together with the easy camaraderie of people who had shared mortal danger. How do you feel? He asked Mordun. Different, the crystalline cadet replied. For the first time in my life, I understand why someone might choose to live on a dangerous world. And why is that? Because danger teaches you what you're really capable of. This sentiment was echoing across the galaxy. The purist attack had backfired completely, demonstrating not human primitiveness but human adaptability. More importantly, it had shown that other species could learn these techniques. Within days, applications for human exchange programs increased by 3,000%. Military academies, medical schools, engineering colleges, and diplomatic corps all requested immediate access to Deathworld training methods. The Galactic Council established the Office of Crisis Management with Hai Jin as its first director.